MIDDLEKAUFF! Hey, hey! What's up, everybody? Welcome. It is Thursday afternoon, evening, depending on where you are. It's night in some parts of the world. Jamaica, it's night.
Singapore.
Australia. Thailand. It's summer.
Oh, yeah.
What time is it where Cliff Kingsbury is?
I mean, he's just him and his Insta thought, just naked, laying there doing who knows what, guy. Those two are just.
Where are they? Bangkok?
Yeah, probably on like an elephant. Just how they do the elephant rides where you just get on top of an elephant like a saddle, like they have on horses, and they just take you around.
Quick run to the market, elephant.
Yeah, until you cross a tiger and it leaps up.
We up high.
They can leap.
Friday morning in Japan. Thank you. All right, everybody. It's great to see you. If you are watching this on YouTube, awesome. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Help it grow. Help it grow. Help it grow. We're nearing 20,000 subs on the tube, which we'll get there. But the faster, the better. And we appreciate you. If you are watching our podcast, we got a pod. This is a podcast. You can just take this as you go. Listen to it wherever you want. Although somebody did send me a DM on Twitter today, show me the workaround for how to close out the YouTube app and still just listen to the audio while you do other stuff. I guess there's a way to do that if you wanted to, outside of just paying for the premium. Listen to the podcast. If you are listening to the podcast, this is also a video, the video version of this. You can click on the YouTube link in the podcast description, and that takes you to the Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF YouTube channel. And however you consume, we thank you. Share it with your friends.
Live on Haberman's TikTok. You still TikTok active?
No, I'm actually not TikTok active. Are you? Have you been TikToking?
Deleted it from my phone a long time ago after some of the rumblings that they're just falling by every whereabouts. Made me nervous.
Same. I did the same thing.
Even though Tim Cook's like MIDDLEKAUFF, I know everything you've done for 7 years.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the story, I don't know if the story's still going, but maybe like a week and a half ago, somewhere in the Northeast, they suspect he killed his wife based on all his searches on his kid's iPad late at night. It was like, how to dispose of a body. Can you wash blood out of clothes? Have you seen that story at all? Like early last week?
Is this like the New York Scott Peterson?
Kinda. Yeah.
I think I've seen headlines. It feels like we've had several parents killing kids and family members. A lot going on right now in society.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. But this one was just the part of the story was his YouTube searches, not his YouTube searches, his internet searches from his kid's iPad, it was like a list of like just all the things somebody who killed somebody would search if they had no idea what to do at that point,
His wife's missing.
I don't think there's a body. Again, I'm not Lester Holt here, but one of the things was they also, because he had a cell phone on him, it's like they've got him between cell phone and security footage. Like they've got him just like popping over to dumpsters over the course of like 3 days. They know what he was doing because they just, he's got a cell phone on him. And so it's very easy to kind of track his movements post disappearance.
Well, have you been following the murders in Moscow, Idaho? The 4 kids,
the college kids.
Yeah,
What's the latest there?
Well, 60 Minutes. Well, this guy's, he's done. But when they were breaking it down right before a bunch of new information came out, they had his cell phone the night of the murders. He turned his cell phone off. Because, this guy's a criminal justice major, or he was getting a master's or whatever at Washington State, but then it comes back on when he's crossing the border like 30 minutes later. So this guy understood. I bet it might be the last thing you're thinking of is they can track your every movement. He turned his phone off for a period of time, so they couldn't totally track it.
Yeah, and he is who? Do we know who's this guy?
Brian Koppelganger or something, I think his name is. And
the guy who wrote Billions?
No, similar name. I think I'm screwing up the pronunciation here, but he had like 7 degrees, was at Washington State, criminal justice major, Still a lot to be undiscovered. I mean, the cops know, us, the public, do not, of his relationship with either one or two of the girls. Killed 3 girls and a boyfriend.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
Just rattled Moscow, Idaho.
God.
Did you see that? Even the beginning of the 4 kids killed.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
know
I mean,
about
I'm familiar with that
Yeah.
general story, but
Wow.
guys, just
Koberger. And then Washington State campus police, they put out like an APB, but only police knew. They were looking for like a specific like Honda Prius, the color, the make, spotted it, let the police know. They didn't tell anybody. Then he was driving back to PA with his dad, flew out driving across country. They were keeping tabs on him, but they didn't make it public. They pulled him over like 3 separate times throughout the travel home for bullshit things, and they would like ask him questions, and he would look terrified, thinking like he's getting caught. I mean, it's just wild times,
Book recommendation for you. I don't know if you've seen the Apple Plus commercial with Timothy Chalamet. Have you happened to catch that commercial yet?
No, I don't think I have.
Maybe you've seen it and you don't know you've seen it. But he's like on the phone. He just can't understand. He's a famous actor, why he doesn't have an Apple TV show. And in it, one of the things they show is this movie that's coming out, this new Scorsese movie that's coming out called Killers of the Flower Moon. Of course, it's Scorsese, so DiCaprio's in it. Anyway, it's not out yet. Book recommendation. I'm in the middle of this book, Killers of the Flower Moon. On the show we like to recommend books.
Big readers.
Learned readers that we are. Very good book. Very good book. It's
You reading or listening?
Listening. I'm listening. It's about...
That's the millennial way of reading.
I'll give you the quick synopsis. Early 1900s, the Osage Indians, this Indian tribe, gets all this land that turns out to be incredibly oil rich, and they make a lot of money. And suddenly, in like 1921, they start getting murdered. Like 21 of them get murdered. Very famous, becomes a big story. J. Edgar Hoover just takes over the FBI. It's like big murders, mystery, money, oil, and the formation of the FBI. It's all true. Very good book. And the movie is coming out. It's a Scorsese movie.
You think Leo's playing Hoover?
I don't know who Leo's playing. I don't know, because the book and the movie can be so different. So my guess is no, he's not. I don't know who he's playing. And if I started naming people, nobody here would know who I'm talking about. But my guess is no, that he's not playing. My guess is he's playing the lead investigator. That'd be my guess. J. Edgar did a lot of stuff from The Office,
What did I just see? A movie coming out that Damon and Affleck supposed to be pretty good.
Oh,
Shit.
Phil Knight.
Yeah, Phil Knight, Shoe Dog.
Shoe Dog. Yeah.
And Affleck is playing Phil Knight, and Damon is playing Sonny Vaccaro.
That's right. Yeah. I couldn't remember.
Damon put on some LBs. Looks kind of the thicker,
I read an article today, USA Today, about how Dion, like what's going to happen, because Coach Prime hates Nike, but he coaches at a Nike school guy. He's a sworn Under Armour guy. I guess it goes back to his shoes in the early 90s. He says that he helped the Nike designer design them, but he doesn't get any money for the shoes. And so he's sworn off Nike, but now he's at a Nike school. Most of his appearances he does, if he wears a Colorado gear, it's non-Nike. But he has worn Nike Colorado gear. So there's, what's going to happen? I don't know. But
can they break the contract and get with Under Armour?
Under Armour? I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you're Nike, you'd probably still want to have the Colorado deal, even if Prime doesn't wear your gear, because your gear is going to sell, right?
Hell yeah.
And most people aren't going to notice that Prime is like not wearing the Nike gear.
I have not noticed that.
So,
but it does make sense. He does wear some generic Colorado stuff.
Like when he went on the Manning cast, he was wearing a Colorado hat, but it had like a different, it was like, like everything, you can buy other brands, whatever, name a brand.
Yeah.
That sells like college gear. You go to Fanatics, it's not all Nike, but it is licensed. So we, on the other hand, are brought to you by Tito's. Tito's handmade vodka. Numero uno. It is a big football weekend coming up. Here's the other thing that's coming up, and this is the beauty. There is no off season for Friday nights. Friday nights, Every week there's one of them. And every week there's a Saturday. And every week there's a little Friday Junior. It's a Thursday. That's what today is. There's always days. There's always times for Tito's handmade vodka. Great for any situation.
I made a mistake the other night. Actually, it was last night. We had spaghetti, meatballs, garlic bread, huge feast. And
Pre-game.
sometimes
Carb
wine's involved, and one glass of wine led to a couple bottles. And you just don't feel right in the morning. And I never, when I'm drinking Tito's and sodas,
wine. I feel bad in 20 minutes with wine.
The wine, the after feel in the morning is just, it's just not what you get with Tito's. So when you go out this weekend with Tito's, just when you wake up and go for a jog, wake up, go for a hike, wake up, just go for a walk. You can't do that off wine. So should have had a Tito's soda with my spaghetti.
You should have. Or just maybe mixed up something else. I bet you go to Tito'sVodka.com, you poke around a little bit, you're going to find a drink that's going to work.
Totally
Google
agree.
like what vodka drinks go with Italian food. And the next thing you know, you find I don't know, next great I'm sure you can make
something good.
Yeah. Make a Negroni with vodka. Can that be done? This is where it's at. Look, we've been telling you about Tito. Tito's, we're wrapping up the second football season that Tito's has been a sponsor of the show. And as we always tell you, it's great for watching games. It's great for hanging out. You go to somebody's house, bring a bottle of Tito's, slap a little bow on it if you want. Always have it in the home. Like you and I, we keep about 12 bottles on hand. I just give them to people. Hey, man, you like vodka? Oh, take a bottle with you. We got so much. Because our guy Devin at Tito's once upon a time just dropped off. I mean, it was
crazy.
It came freight shipment.
Yeah.
It wasn't even one of the normal delivery people. It was a freight shipment. They just dumped that sucker on the driveway. So we love it. Tito's handmade vodka, numero uno, distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly. Yeah, just a little ginger beer, little mint. It's all there. Also brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you bet just $5 on either NFL playoff game, and you instantly get $200 in bonus bets deposited into your account when you sign up with the code HAM.
Very easy, guy. Just go to your app store right now, your applications, download the DraftKings Sportsbook. If you are in one of the states where it's legal, fire away. Type in the promo code HAM when you sign up. Just make one $5 bet this weekend, the Final Four, and instantly get a $200 bonus. Can't beat that. Bet on whatever you want. NBA, NFL, NHL, college basketball. College basketball's heating up. Got a lot going on. Rodney Terry, former Fresno State guy, in charge of Texas now.
USC UCLA Thursday night, if you're catching this live. It's a good game.
So, and if mobile's not available, there's always DraftKings Daily Fantasy, a little DFS, as the kids call it.
People have been asking us about that. Like, hey, when are you guys going to fire up some golf games again? We had our DFS DraftKings, our ham, we got a little pod. This is a pod. Like we've got a group on the DFS that's pretty big.
We once did a Masters. I remember it was like 200 people, $20 entries. The pot was pretty big.
Yeah. Yeah, we've done some big ones. So we could fire that back up post-football, I think. But it's all there for you. So download now. Code HAM, $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet $5 on any NFL playoff game. That's promo code HAM, only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm not going to lie, says Michael. I'm tempted to get a Tito's, thanks to you fellas, and make a 007. That's Tito's, Sprite, and a splash of OJ.
Remember when Sprite, their lead promotional head was Grant Hill? Hard not to drink Sprite back in the day.
I do remember that.
Grant Hill was, that dude was ahead of his time as an influencer.
I remember my neighbor got a pair of Fila's, like the white shoes that had the blue kind of pattern that went the outside of the shoe all the way around. It was a cool shoe.
Yeah, it was.
Couldn't pay, I don't know if maybe you could pay to put me in a
Fila. Some of the shoes like late 90s, AIs, the pennies, that. It probably felt and looked a little cooler back then than when you really look at them. Like, I couldn't pull this off. If you ever tried to wear basketball shoes in the late 90s, they were so big and bulky and thick. It's like a ski boot.
Yeah, it's like everyone was a post player. It was just like,
yeah.
Which the Jordans still are, but everything else is kind of slimmed up.
True. The
Penny
Curry.
Hardaway. Yeah, the Curry, the Kobe's all slimmed up. The Kyrie is a slim
Kyrie's,
shoe.
yeah.
The Durant's are slim shoes. Have we talked about this? I feel like I'm having to I met a Nike designer on a plane several months ago, and he started breaking it down for me. Like, yeah, the Jordans really are still the ones that are the big boxy ones, but everything else is kind of slimmed up.
He been a part of it for a while, Shoe Dog, or he's new to the.
Yeah, he was part of he's been on a few design teams. It was pretty cool.
He's
been in the room
Tiger
with Mike
Michael?
a few times. Been in the room with Mike. He didn't say Tiger, but been in the room with Mike. Greg
cool.
on the stream says, I've never tried Tito's, but what's the best drink to try it with? What would you say?
I'd say the easiest is some flavored soda water. And LaCroix are in vogue. Just pick a flavored LaCroix, pour, a couple shots of Tito's, pour some LaCroix. You'll be like, damn, this is a pretty tasty, easy drink.
Somebody said add some Torani syrup to it. I've not
It's
had
getting
that.
a little sugary. Yeah. You can always add stuff like that. If you want a little splash of cran, if you just go vodka, soda, splash of cran, I'd say that's a
good one.
Favorite in America. It's been going strong for a while.
I like a little ginger beer, but lemonade and iced tea, that one also works. A little sweet. You could just grab an Arizona iced tea. That's good.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, we got stuff to dive into. As you can tell from, you probably couldn't tell if you listened to the first 16 minutes of this podcast, but we got huge football games this weekend. Huge! Coming up on Sunday, noon on Fox, Niners-Eagles, and then 3:30 on CBS is Bengals, Mahomes. The line on that game is all right. It's been all over the place. Mahomes was hurt. Then everyone saw Mahomes take 7 steps off a podium, and then somebody said, well, straight line is not where – I saw Crocky tweeted this. He's like, straight line is not where it gets you. It's side to side. There's no evidence that he's moving better. But so that line's been all over the place. Niners are underdogs right now, 2.5. 2.5 on underdogs. So we can get to the betting line, but
would they be better off going Saturday, Sunday night for these two games? Because you get 2 weeks, so it's not like any team would have an advantage.
It's a good question. I think in some ways would enjoy that more. Give each game its own day, but my guess is no. My guess is the ratings are bigger this way than if they went Saturday, Sunday night. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly Sunday is a bigger day than Saturday night. Sunday afternoon. I mean, the Niners and Cowboys just played on Sunday afternoon, and last time I checked, it was the second biggest divisional game in the history of the league.
45 point. What was it? 45, 47?
I would expect
the Monday night game. The Monday night game was 30 million. So the Niners Cowboys divisional game did what? Almost 50%. Actually, did 50% more right than the Monday night game did.
Would you expect? I mean, would the NFL sign up right now for the same number?
45.
Yeah,
I think they can go higher.
Well, I know, but 45 in general is a very, very good number for these conference.
I think they'd say no. Like, let's see if we can get 52.
Yeah, it's going to be big.
It's going to be big. It is big. It's it's easy. I think if we went into conference weekend, if we went back and put ourselves on the Thursday or Friday before every conference weekend, you go back and look at some of the matchups that we've had. There've been some great matchups, and I think you would say to yourself, like, oh, every year, I think you could convince yourself, oh, this one's big, this one's big, this one's big. So I say that because I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment here, but I really do think if even in the context of how big like NFC championship games are, and you get some big ones, this one feels like it's on the bigger end of the spectrum. This is the 1 seed and the 2 seed. This is, the number 1 defense and the number 3 offense. It is a Philadelphia franchise that has a massive following. It's an 49ers franchise that has a massive following. It's in Philly. These teams have not played in the postseason in, over 25 years. They've only played once.
They don't even play that much to begin with.
They really don't. They're 2 humongous storyline teams. Like the Eagles have been a huge story all year. The Niners have been a huge story for several years now. They're just massive. I do think this feels extra big. This matchup, the Eagles feel like a juggernaut. The Niners have been in these games so many times under Kyle Shanahan that this game just feels humongous.
In a weird way, and I'm not trying to be prisoner of the moment, it feels going into the game the biggest game of Kyle Shanahan's his era.
What do you mean by that?
Non-Super Bowl.
You're going to have to convince me on that.
I feel that first year when they had a ton of success and they were the 1 seed, it's just like everything's so new. You're playing the Packers who weren't that good. I'm not saying there wasn't a lot of buzz and excitement, and that year was awesome. But I think most people view that Packer team as kind of frauds.
The Vikings team.
The Niners were huge favorites in both those 2 games.
Yeah.
Last year, it was the complete opposite. They were just underdogs. It was just people were just praying for a victory, right? No one, the overwhelming majority of 49er fans did not think they were going to beat Green Bay. So going into the game, it's fun because it's a huge playoff game. You weren't viewing it like, we're just a huge underdog. We're not. These are like equal teams with elite players everywhere. I honestly think this has a feel of like some of the Harbaugh. To me, the championship game where he beats Atlanta did not have the same vibe as the Giants won and as Seattle won. Those felt like, holy fuck. Especially the Seattle one. I would say this is the biggest, if I had to rank them going into the game, that Seattle one and this Eagle one are just like, people can't wait. Because you don't know what you're going to see. You expect like, we could win, we could lose, elite players on the road, crazy environment. The 12s probably a little friendlier, but loud. This little angrier, but also loud. I was watching Kelsey today, like, they have to go silent snap count at home, and he's not even mad. He's like, yeah, fans just get kind of rowdy, But
I love that. Like, Eagles fans are basically like, hey, you guys figure it out.
Yeah, we're paying a premium.
I paid a lot of money to be here.
We're going to enjoy the shit out of this. And it's just, this is what playoff football is. And they asked Kelsey also about like how happy he was about his brother's game not ending up in the dome. And he's like, playoff football is meant to be in the cold. And the one thing the 49ers have done for being a warm weather team, they're a cold, they translate to the cold, right? They've translated to Seattle ugly games. They're translated to Green Bay game last year. They are built for this environment, which also makes it cool, right? It wasn't like, well, the Niners are this 13-14, but they're built like a dome team, like the fucking Bills. Ironically, they play in the cold. The Niners are built for this. There's just, like you said, 2 just massive brands, 2 massive stories. I'd say for a couple years running. I mean, last year the Eagles sent Carson Wentz packing and went with Jalen Hurts. The Niners were definitely one of the biggest stories in the league last year where they traded 3 first-round picks to draft a quarterback. And now 2 years later, he's not even playing because of Brock Purdy. You have Jalen Hurts.
And Brock's become one of the biggest stories in the NFL.
And Brock's become one of the biggest stories. And both these 2 teams made massive trades, one during the draft and one during the season for McCaffrey and AJ, who I would say over the last like half decade, non-quarterbacks. I mean, these guys are 2 of the more famous skill guys in the league, right? Christian McCaffrey and AJ Brown.
Yep.
There's not a person alive that plays fantasy football that doesn't know who those 2 guys are. So they both have star defensive players. They both have like legendary offensive linemen. They both have offensively led, I would say, organizations. Look at the Eagles, right? Andy, Doug, Sirianni, Chip, like the 49ers, Bill Walsh, Harbaugh, Kyle, Mariucci. Like they tend to lean offense. But I would say both teams, they're good teams. Like Andy's great teams and Doug's team and this team, like they do have star defensive players. The Niners have always been led by great defenses, ironically, because they're kind of known as like offensive U, but they're actually like from Ronnie Lott led defenses in the 80s to that 94 team when they signed Dion to Harbaugh. Harbaugh's teams were defensive led. And I mean, Kyle, literally his team is the number 1 defense in the league. He does not rolling in the number 1 offense, even though the offense is potent. They're the number 1 defense in the league. They've always had elite defensive coordinators. Like Fangio became a legend under Harbaugh. Saul has gotten a job. D'Amico's about to get a job. The Eagles, also a lot like the Niners, pump out a lot of assistants. I mean, honestly, their 2 guys could become head coaches. Did you say, was the buzz that Steichen was going to had a chance at Carolina?
That's what one of the Philly reporters said.
Gotcha. So who knows?
But I saw Benjamin Albright today say that he thinks Jonathan Gannon, who is the Eagles defensive coordinator, will end up in Houston.
And there's a lot of buzz about D'Amico going to Denver.
Yeah.
Right. So they might get a little lucky, right? Shane just doesn't have a job and just comes back.
They'd get very lucky if Steichen ended up coming back. Yeah.
Because it does feel like Indy's going to hire Friday, Saturday. So, and the Arizona, who knows? But yeah. So
Yeah,
this
Arizona actually, Steichen might be a good fit there, but yeah, I mean, it is on a basic level. It's just two of the most famous franchises, right? Like Niners Rams last year did 50 million. This game, I think, should be a higher rated game, but Niners Rams is a pretty easy.
I think when they're all good, you could argue the Niners are top. I mean, they're right there as like a top 3 brand. Cowboys are 1. I think there's probably an argument for the Packers when they're humming. They're fucking massive. Then I think there's probably 3 or 4 teams that would be fighting for that number 3 spot, and I think the Niners, the Giants, the Steelers. I mean, they'd be on the short list, but the Niners. And listen, I'm not trying to diminish the Eagles because the Eagles are, when they matter for the league. But they're, the Niners are bigger, but the Eagles are damn big too. So
it is. What the Niners do is they play kind of the type of game that Philadelphia identifies with as a town, right? Like when this broadcast starts, you're going to see a shot of Rocky Balboa's statue and the stairs that Rocky runs up in the movie. And the Niners have guys that play Rocky Balboa type games. Like if this is a boxing match, you'd say if it turns into a boxing match, small area hand-to-hand combat, it's good for the Niners because that's what they know. That is what Debo knows. That is what Christian McCaffrey knows. And if you want to pick apart the Eagles a little bit, one thing you'd say is because they've been so dominant, which there's no such thing as, there's no bad, it's only good when you're dominant, but they just haven't been in as many of these types of games as the Niners have. And I know the Niners blow people out, but the Niners play kind of the same game against bad teams and good teams, right?
Yeah.
And I just think Debo, like you go back and watch I went back and watched Niners Eagles from last year, which was week 2, I think.
When Lions Eagles
translates a lot of the Eagles defense has gotten better. They've upgraded their receivers. Jalen Hurts has gotten better. A lot's changed since that game. But I just wanted to see how did Hurts look moving against the Niners front, because it's still Armstead and Bosa, and again the Niners front has changed also. And the one thing that really stood out in that game was guess who made some big freaking plays in that game was Debo. And I think it benefits the Niners, and we talked about this on the last show. Like the Eagles are the number 1 first half scoring offense in the NFL. If they get out to a fast start, that is a problem for the 49ers. But if they don't, the Niners style, which is Philadelphia would love this 49ers team because it's a very blue collar style of football. And I'm not saying, like, I think Jalen Hurts can probably play that style, right? I think Jalen Hurts can play a game where he's 12-17, but he's running all over the place. We'll see. But I think the Niners are built for what Philadelphia is as a town. And I think that's Debo. McCaffrey to me is classic. Like his numbers, sometimes you look up, he's like 2.9 yards a carry, but you just feel him. And the Niners are built for that kind of game.
I was just thinking, listen, when I used to get my oil changed in Philly, where a lot of people went in our front office, it was like downtown Philadelphia, and you'd pull into this garage, and upstairs in this guy's office, and this guy was like 50 years old. He was like a light heavyweight, boxer growing up.
Golden Gloves?
Yeah, that's exactly what he was. And he was, on the fringe of becoming like a legit pro boxer, but you would go up to take a leak, and in his office, and just these pictures, again, downtown, like where it's already kind of tough. And it was like, it feels like I'm fucking Rocky Jr. down here fixing my car. And it's the complete opposite for anyone that's lived, in San Francisco and the Silicon Valley. It's a different way of life. And, I was watching Rocky probably within the last couple of weeks, Rocky 3 with Carl Weathers, who I did because I was like, God damn, Carl Weathers is just jacked. And he's Apollo Creed. And I Google it, played linebacker at Long Beach State, got undrafted free agent in 1970 or 71 for the Raiders with John Madden. I think got cut pretty quick and transitioned pretty fast into acting. But it's just the way the societal kind of construct of the two areas couldn't be much different. I've lived in both.
I would say now, though, right? Like, I think once upon a time, I bet the Bay Area viewed itself
Yeah, I'd say pre-Silicon Valley blowing up the last 15, 20 years, Northern California was a lot different. But most people just had blue-collar jobs throughout, like, up to 95. It wasn't like, yeah, just going into my my white-collar job at Dell. It didn't even exist.
Yeah, here's
I'm with you.
Stream, watching the ham pod right now from Cyprus.
Exactly.
Country or the golf course? Maybe it is.
Might be the area.
Golf course.
If it is the course, I mean that sums it up, guy. Now it's not like Philly, like Tiger hosted a golf tournament when I was there at Aronimink. It's not like they don't have nice shit, but one thing these two places have, they fucking love their NFL teams, and the 49ers were so goddamn big, the other team had to get the hell out of there because they had no shot at any money. They just stifled all the cat. They had the market cornered on every human and every dollar. The Eagles have just had the market corner because they're the only NFL team. But both of them, you can say the Bear, it can be a baseball town. You can say Philly can be just whatever town that the team. I think the football teams have come. The Niners have come first since 1981. And, you'd have to ask like Reuben Frank or Sal Palantonio. But I would imagine the Eagles have been first since probably the early 80s as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't care how big, when the Giants are rolling and the Warriors, when the Niners are big, their numbers dwarf the other. It's just football's different to consume. It's easier. It's only one game. We've always talked about that, and I'm not just saying this because, I'm a football guy. I love sports. They're just the biggest. And that's the way it is in most of these towns, right? Obviously the Dodgers are bigger than the Rams, right? But if the Rams had been there for 50 years, it'd probably be a little different. And maybe the Dodgers and Yankees are just kind of unique, which I'd probably say they are.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, all of those, a significant one thing that comes into play with all of those teams you're mentioning are history in terms of just the amount of time and a location and success. Like a lot of winning, right? The 49ers have been in more NFC conference championship games than any other franchise. Like the Dodgers came out and were just really good for a long time. The Yankees have been maybe the best franchise in all of professional sports. Even the Giants came out in 58 and the San Francisco Giants, right? And were really good.
Being good.
I heard
that's the only way to get big is to be good. Right?
I heard Mad Dog the other day. Yesterday, this guy was on his show as a guest. He's like, Chris, I remember when you used to say, I give all of my Marconis for a World Series. And then they won 3. The guy's like, what are you even mad about anymore? I'd give all of my Marconis for just one. Talking about this.
Well, it's why a lot of comedians, it's hard to be funny when you get rich, right?
Yeah, whose theory is?
Yeah, it's hard to be funny when you're sleeping in satin sheets. Wasn't that Eddie Murphy or one of those guys?
Well, no, I was thinking of the guy I saw the other day that said, what's his name? What's the comedian? Very hot comedian. Very good. Hilarious. Middle-aged, redhead. Bill Burr, who said maybe it was David Spade. One of those guys was like, yeah, all these guys are from the Northeast. I don't remember.
Oh, yeah, because they're angry. Yeah.
Bill Burr. Anyway.
But the thing the Niners have, even more, obviously the Eagles just won their first Super Bowl in 2017. And it shows you how much people cared about football back then. They had successful teams, but hell, they had only been to a couple Super Bowls over like a 30-year span. I mean, the 49ers, just every generation, whether you're our age, whether you were, in your mid-70s, whether you're 60, whether you're a 15-year-old kid now, you've experienced just a lot of really sweet teams. And that is something that just, there is no circumventing the importance of that to build and just create, like, these games are the sweetest. So you want to play in these games. Like, think about the Bears, for example. Like the Cubs won a World Series more recently. The Bulls have had some, playoff level teams. The Bears, it doesn't feel like ever go to the playoffs. Fuck, you gave them 1 year. If they were just like a 14-win team, the whole fucking city was shut down. If they were just in this game. The importance. The Niners now, this is their third time in 4 years. Third time in 4 years. Like, it feels pretty normal, even though it has not been. I mean, this season they went 13-4. This doesn't feel like your typical 13-4 season. Like the Eagles, what's crazy is we've talked about it, and I'm guilty of this. Like the Eagles are some juggernaut. They have one more win than the Niners. One more win.
Yeah.
But their season has felt much more normal beside like a 2-week stretch when Minshew came in than the 49ers. Now, part of that is losing quarterbacks.
Well, the Eagles established early they were one of the best. It just kind of early on, right? They started
Well, when the Niners were 3-4, they were 7-0.
So that's they feel like the Niners felt in 19.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they feel like the Niners felt in 19. I just think part of it. What do you think about the style of game? The fact that they haven't. I would say we'd have to go through the. It feels like the Niners might in 19 maybe got tested a little more than this Philly team did. But again, I just refuse to knock a team for blowing people out. Right. Oh, their schedule wasn't that good. Well, they kicked everyone's ass. So that's what you do when your schedule's not that good. Right. That said, what about if this game is 14-14 going into the third quarter? Like, do the Niners have some advantage there? I don't know. I mean, the Eagles are good teams. I don't know that there's a ton of advantage there. But like when we say, well, Jalen Hurts has played in a lot of big games, or Brock Purdy hasn't played in an environment like this, those things are true. But to me, what really matters is Brock Purdy is playing that defensive line. Jalen Hurts is playing that defensive line. Like, to me, the biggest thing about big games is less about the pressure that you feel because of how much is on the line and more about how good the other players on the other team are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, the pressure of the game, all that shit's real. But eventually, every player that ever plays in this game says, yeah, you don't feel that for 4 quarters. You get over it, and then you're playing the great players on the other side. Like, and that is what matters in this game. And I don't know. I think the Niners are just built for like the type of game that they play historically under Kyle is a playoff style of game.
Well, the one thing the Niners have going for them is their core group of star players have all been through this the last couple of years. Like the Eagles, they're this version of their team. Like the Niners team is basically the same back to back. I mean, they've added their quarterback's different, but like the core group of guys, which is reason that they win or they lose, have now basically played in all these games over the last 4 seasons. They've added, Trent's come, McCaffrey's come, but like those are plug and play players that could play in any environment, right? That the Eagles, like their core group of guys that were part of that Super Bowl team, are much older, and they're relying on, AJ Brown, who's been with a very successful team, but not with this quarterback. Jalen's played in 2 playoff games. Devontae, this is his 2nd season in the league. Miles Sanders and Goddard, this is their first 2 years, and they've been a part of 1 playoff victory. Obviously, the coaching staffs, I think, one thing, the parallels of these 2 coaching staffs, like they're led at the top. The Eagles are 3 guys. They're talked about, right? Sirianni and his 2 coordinators, and really it's just Kyle and D'Amico, all young guys, right? I mean, Kyle's 43, the oldest, I think, of the 4. D'Amico, I would guess, is 38, 39. If you look at the resumes of the 2 coordinators for Sirianni, they were both quality control guys within the last 6, 7 years. It's not like they have been long-time position coaches in the league. Like, for example, the 2 coordinators for the offensive head coaches in the AFC game for Zach and Andy are Steve Spagnuolo and Lou Anarumo. I always screw up his name. Coach Lou. Those guys, Spags has been in the league since you and I were fucking really young, probably in high school, and been a defensive coordinator in the NFL for a long time. And Coach Lou, like, he's 58 years old. He's been a position coach in the NFL for a while. So it's just, this is a very young, it kind of speaks to, Jeffrey is a lot older than Jed, but they're very similar in like they love getting credit for getting the young hotshot. Like they kind of live for it.
Yeah, I think what's different is that, Jed handed the whole thing over to Kyle. Whereas Howie Roseman just won the Executive of the Year award for the 2nd time. I think maybe there's only one other GM that's done that. It hasn't happened many times.
Did Howie win it?
I thought I saw he just won it today. And Brian Daboll, the Coach of the Year. Maybe not the NFL, like maybe it's like the AP award, not the official. I shouldn't say not the official, but
you're right. It was because there's the Pro Football Writers of America, and then there's the AP.
Which one was this? The Pro Football Writers?
Roseman, Vice President, General Manager, was named the 2022 Executive of the Year by the Pro Football Writers of America. He won the award also in 2017.
So they are, like, I do think they're different in that.
But like that final 5, the one Kyle's on and Sirianni's not, is that the AP? Are they separate? Did you see that?
I thought that was the same thing that That's the one. Daboll just won it.
Daboll won it.
Final
Okay.
three. There was a
Got
final three I saw of Kyle, Daboll, and Doug Peterson.
And Daboll was named the coach of the year by the
Daboll,
Riders.
yeah, because in coach of the year voting, they prefer you to coach a team that we thought was going to suck, and you win 9 games instead of just being great, like Andy, let's say, won 14 games. Great year, 14 games, incredible. But the Giants were supposed to suck, and Daniel Jones was supposed to suck, and Brian Daboll. If
Andy's never winning the coach of the year.
We love to be like, if you ain't first, you're last. Except when it comes to coach of the year awards, where it's like, middle of the pack when we thought you were going to suck. Congrats. How can you be the coach of the year with 9 wins? That's insane to me.
Well, how do Belichick and Phil Jackson have a combined 2?
Exactly. Greg Popovich. Jimmy Johnson won the award with 7 wins one year.
Jimmy Johnson, the Fox guy?
Cowboys coach. Early 90s, won with 7 wins. Won 7
because they had sucked so much. So by the second year when they were competitive. You're right. We look at it. I do think we got to give Daboll some credit. He was pretty good this year.
I am not saying Daboll's not worthy. I'm just saying we overvalue. We thought you were going to suck and you didn't suck instead of you had a target on your back and you backed it up. How about that? Well, the more I've thought about it, I was not all year long like a Shanahan advocate for coach of the year. But the more I've thought about it, it's like if we're comparing it to Daboll, who won 9 and did a great job, absolutely deserving. Kyle just a 2 seed with a third string quarterback. That's insane.
Yeah.
But anyway. People thought.
Well, I think the way I watched Jason Kelsey's press conference, and he was asked because last week he said if we win in the trenches, we're going to win this game. And they asked him that, you believe that that's going to carry over to this game? He said, no, I don't. He said last game I knew that if we dominated as an offensive line, their defensive line was kind of all they had, they weren't going to beat us. He's like, that's not. It's everyone has to come to the table in this game. Basically speaking, this is a completely different world of an opponent. So this is not I got to do my job. Jalen's got to do his job. Fletcher Cox got to do his we got to dominate in every phase, and that to me summed up we're getting a real game. This is this is kind of the round robin. I think we all thought we were getting with the Bills, Bengals, and Chiefs, that they were inevitably all kind of one was going to get KO'd, but the other two would, one team would have to go through both. And turns out Cincinnati, but it's just each game is going to be just woof. And turns out the Bills actually weren't ready. It does feel we're getting the best game on paper that's humanly possible in the NFL with these two teams roster wise. Now,
that's the part we haven't mentioned, that all the star players.
There's a ton. And that's to me what, yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted. You said you just started to say the star players.
Well, no, I mean, it's just, it's a Pro Bowl level group of players at every position.
A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Debo, McCaffrey, Goddard, Kittle, Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, Trent Williams. Who did I skip? Oh, Ayuk. Fred Warner, Bradbury, no fly zone Slay or whatever his name is.
Ward. Both Wards. I mean, I think Jimmy Ward, is just a winning high level championship level player. He was so good last week when you watch that game back, just hitting people, sure tackling. You don't start for either one of these two teams beside Eagles linebackers if you're not just a really, really high-end player. Because that's the only position where you go, every guy in our unit would start for you. Where, both teams would say, this guy could start here, this guy would start here. You would take Trent over Mulata, but it's, Mulata's really good relative to the rest of the league. Kelsey would start over everybody. Lane Johnson would obviously be the right tackle. You would take Hurts. We can get into that a little later. I think the league would, just based on one guy who just was a second-round pick and potentially won an MVP, but who knows? Maybe next year Brock Purdy's competing to win the MVP. You go, well, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, is that a better combo than Debo and Ayuk? Maybe it is better production-wise, but it's not like every team in the league wouldn't take Debo and Ayuk. You go, Goddard's an up-and-coming star. Yeah, George Kittle's better, but it's they're fucking both Pro Bowl-level guys. The Niners running backs are probably a little
they're better. I do think they're better.
Miles Sanders is a really good player. You would go, Bosa's the best defensive lineman, but then you might go, the next couple are coming from them, because I think the two guys Reddick, I saw Kyle was asked about it because they used to play him when he was with the Cardinals for a long time.
Yeah.
And he just like, he had a good point. He said, the thing with pass rushers, if you can stay healthy, it's one of the rare positions in the NFL, probably a lot like quarterbacks, but it's obviously much more determined on your athleticism, explosiveness. You actually get better with age, and it makes sense. You just become so much smarter because it is, for being this kind of crazy, physical position, it's kind of got this like nuanced, almost like Taekwondo element to it because the hand fighting, it's not just like, oh, it's a lot of, and that's where I think Nick really thrives. He's like a football genius, I think, as a player. And it's using a lot of intellect. It's why when you see a really high level lineman, defensive or offensive talk, you go, God, this guy's really, their IQ at the sport is really, really high.
Yeah. Yep. I saw the Eagles guys have said, watching one of their shows, that one of their underrated stories the last few weeks is Kazir White, the linebacker, has actually been playing really well. So I actually don't think it was quite the weakness that maybe it's looked like in years past. I mean, you could put together a hell of a secondary with these two teams, right?
Ward, Slay, your two starters.
Bradbury.
I think it depends who you ask on Bradbury. I know he's, makes some plays and he's
going to be
famous.
probably one of the top corners. I think he's a free agent. He'll be one of the top. I haven't looked at the market, but he'll get paid. Somebody's going to pay him.
Lenore,
the safety. Yeah, I mean, Lenore, does he end up in the slot, or Jimmy Ward, or I don't know. And then probably, are both safeties Niners in that case? The Niners probably have the safety edge.
It's weird. I think, I'm a huge Hufunga guy, but he is very scheme dependent. He's not one of those like, put him anywhere. You make like he would. You couldn't just like pass only and just in.
But if with the corners, he'd be fine.
I would say, how about Gibson has had an incredible season, given that anyone could have had him.
He's been really good. He makes a lot of open field tackles, makes plays on the ball. I agree.
I think I saw a lot of the Eagles guys thought that, and I think by all the metrics, but I mean, the Niners are the best tackling team in the league. They just do not miss tackles. Even if you get a yards after the carry or yards after catch, it's because you've gone through a tackle. Like they're there. A lot of teams like we're the defenders. The Niners are always around you. Their linebackers don't miss tackles, but like I guess it took DK to run over Charvarius. So most teams, but I
thought he went over the top too.
We did, but on the one to the right side where he kind of
that's I really give you.
It's hard. Hey, listen, Coach Prime said it a long time ago. They pay me to cover. Like you don't pay. You pay them to help tackling, but they are not paid to tackle. I'm not saying you can't be nothing, but if you cover, I can live. And I'm not, the Niners guys tackle fine, and Slay's a physical tackler. I can live with my corners not tackling if they cover. Cover.
This is part of the challenge, though, for the Niners, right? Is that A.J. Brown is kind of Devontae Adams-esque, which is like, I'll just hit you. Like, it's great that you tackle, but if the ball's 20 yards in the air, then I don't even need any yak. I just got 20 yards. A.J. Brown, I saw this on Football Outsiders, was third in the NFL. 570 of his receiving yards came on passes that were 20 or more air yards. Only Tyreek and Devontae had more yards on 20-plus air yard throws. So, I mean, it's, Devontae Adams he's one of the best receivers in the league. Some would say the best. He is a problem he has been a problem when the Niners have played him. And that's kind of what you're getting with AJ. Now, I mean, he's not as, like, Charvarius should be able to, when he's on him, run with him. But AJ doesn't really care if you're on his hip. He just makes plays. That'll be a fun. Here's the other thing. When we talk about this, and I had to check myself today. Like, yeah, they might hit a couple plays. Like, you have to score points to win. Ultimately, you can't go into a game hoping you hold them to 12 points, right?
Yeah. The more and more I've thought about it is like, be good in the red zone. Like, okay, let's say they get a lot of yards. Can you hold them to 21 points and not 34, right? Or 29? Can you keep them in the low 20s? Because what's a number that you go, you're going to have a chance to win?
A chance, or like, I really think you're going to. Like, if you told me 21, I think, yeah, the Niners are in really good shape. If you told me 28, I still think they have a chance to win that.
For sure. If I tell you the Eagles get 33, you start getting higher.
Yeah, now that's
I even say
problem like that.
28. You're starting to get at a pretty big number.
You are. I just think at 28, you're in the game. Like they're not running away from you at 28. I don't think. But it depends. If those 28 come on turnovers and you're losing possessions.
Non-pick sixes and stuff, if they score 28, so basically 4 touchdowns through the offense, that would be concerning because that means the defense is 4 touchdowns a lot. I mean, the Niners don't.
Yeah, the Niners are not for as much as Purdy's better at certain things than Jimmy. What the Niners haven't really changed is like they haven't become a quick strike offense. Like they still need time to get the ball down the field, right? It's like they're hitting a bunch of plays over the top. So they still put the number of possessions still matter a lot to them. You get to halftime, everyone's had 2 possessions. Like that's 4 possessions, whatever. If the Eagles have scored 4 touchdowns, like, all right, how many touchdowns have the Niners scored? If there's only going to be 4 possessions left in this game. So coin flip matters in this game to Kyle a lot.
Well, I was thinking about that too. If you win the coin flip, you take the ball on offense first. Because remember last year against the Cowboys, they did, and they ran it right down their throat because it shuts up the opponent.
Did the Niners win the coin flip last week or lose the coin flip? I mean, they had the ball first and went 3 and out.
I was, I
assumed Dallas won. I didn't catch the flip, but I assumed Dallas won the flip and elected to defer the decision to the second half, as we like to say.
Good thing in these games, they show the flip. Right, it's like I think in the Final Four, like you're the lead up to the game. Like
I'll be there for the flip this week. It's not this flip ain't sneaking up on me.
If I tell you they win the flip, I wonder if you take the ball on offense to set the tone, or do you ease into Purdy?
I think Kyle just loves having that ball first in the beginning of the second half, and to me, I prefer the way Kyle coaches. I think not getting the ball to start the second half. I don't know. I think it makes him uncomfortable, and it makes the end of the half a little more uncomfortable.
Yeah. I would imagine he's just gone. He would just do what he's done because even Brady talks about it. I mean, it's a Belichick thing, right? I mean, I think it's a good coaching thing. You always want the ball to start the second half because if you get the ball late in the first half, you get to double dip.
And you can set the tone with your defense.
As long as they stop them.
Yeah.
Because if they do drive and score a touchdown, the place is going bananas, right? When your offense is coming on. Like,
games are complicated, but this is the number 3 scoring offense in Philly, the number 1 scoring defense in the 49ers. Is this game that simple? I went and looked at Jalen Hurts' his career short. And last year, particularly early last year, he's gotten better since last year. But, some people have said to us, I've got some DMs and stuff from people the last couple of days, like, you guys talk about Jalen like he's some, unbreakable force at quarterback. So I went back and looked this season and last season. The Niners are the number 1 defense in DVOA. So I took the top 10 DVOA defenses this year and the top 10 last year. Jalen Hurts has played 6 games in the last 2 years against top 10 DVOA defenses. What's interesting about him is for being in Dallas's division, he's only played the Cowboys twice in the last 2 years. He missed the Dallas game this year, and he missed the Dallas game last year. And Dallas was one of the top DVOA defenses last year in the NFL also. So I'm just going to run these through. You don't have to, really follow these numbers. I think you'll kind of pick it up. So this year he's played 2 defenses that were top 10 in DVOA. The first Cowboy game, he was 15 of 25 for 155, 2 touchdowns, no picks. They won the game. Washington, they lost. He was 17 of 26, 175, 2 touchdowns and a pick. So those are his 2 games this year. Last year, 4 games against top 10 DVOA defenses. The Niner game, which was week 2, he was 12 of 23, 190, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He ran the ball well that day, though. New Orleans last year, he was 13 of 24, 147. No touchdowns, no picks. 1. Tampa last year, 12 of 26 for 115. 1 touchdown, 1 pick. They lost. And Dallas last year, 25 of 39. This is the one game where he put up big passing numbers. 326, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. And you remembered one was a pick 6.
Yeah. He was terrible. I mean, they got killed on Monday Night Football.
Now, he didn't have A.J. Brown last year. He was not as good of a player.
He had Jalen Reagor.
He had Jalen Reagor. But, when I went back and watched the game last year, you watch him this year, you look at those passing numbers. to me, if you said like, what's one thing? What is a single thing that you could manipulate happens in the game and you think dictates the outcome? And to me, it's Jalen Hurts' legs. Like, does he run the ball 8 times for 72 yards in this game? Because to me, when he does it, it's 3rd and 4, it's 4th and 3. That's where he can really, really hurt you. But in terms of his passing games against the best defenses, those have not been where his biggest passing games have occurred.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question mark on him as a passer, and people, anyone pushing back about the way we have talked about him, like, to me, what you need to do as a quarterback is score points and be a part of scoring drives. And while he didn't throw that many touchdowns this year relative to like star quarterbacks historically that were in MVP races,
22.
He accounts for so many on the ground. Like, you got to those get added together.
14.
So if you do 22. Is 22 his regular season and the Giants game?
I think so. Did he throw it? 22 is the regular season number.
So 22, and then he ran for one. I think the 14 is that.
14 includes the postseason.
So if you just go 22 and 13, like, he is accounting for 35 touchdowns, right? and running, because of the way that they do it with him, he's not the same player, but like Lamar Jackson, like, it's a major threat.
22 well, no, 22 does not include. He threw 2. So he was 24 and 14 if you include the postseason.
Yeah, to me, his threat of running is the reason why he's the real deal, right? Because as a passer, no one's acting like he's one of the top 5 guys as a passer. Now, he throws a great deep ball, which you would say like that. No one's saying that about Brock Purdy. He throws a great deep ball. Now, the thing is, can you take away the deep ball, which is hard with A.J. Brown, and just make him pick you apart? Because that is the knock on him. Just like, pick you apart. Just wheel and deal like Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow. Just throw 300 just with constant 7 yards here, 12 yards here. That's not his deal. They're a very explosive offense. You listed that stat on A.J. Brown, like down the field plays, bombs. Honestly, Russ and DK operated like that. It was explosiveness. If you can take away, like, CeeDee Lamb hit a big play, but CeeDee Lamb can work you. And say one thing for Dak, like, when he is being successful, he can have proven when he's on and he can be off. And then we just saw off. He can just be just like aggregates passes over the course of a game, like Cousins. And that is not Jalen's deal. It's a little feast or famine. So I think the Niners, their game plan is going to be slow him down as a runner. Does he even want to run with this bum shoulder? And make him, if you're going to throw for 250, 300 yards, you're going to fucking have to do it on 28 completions, not 17, right? Because if it's 17 completions and a high yardage, right, I'd say 250 plus and some touchdowns, that's where it gets scary, because that means they're explosive plays. And explosive plays on the road, or if you're the Eagles, explosive plays at home, that place is going bananas.
Yeah.
Because no one goes bananas for like a 7-yard hitch that's tackled. But you do go bananas, even if it doesn't score, for a 40-yard post route to Devontae Smith.
I think that's where Kyle and Brock become so important, because the other thing explosive plays does is it can, if the other side of the field is inexperienced, make them feel like they have to answer the same. Like, you get explosive play and now they start feeling the pressure, right? Where you told me if every Eagles touchdown drive was 8 plays or more, I'd be like, all right, that's the Niners' pace. It doesn't actually change anything if the Eagles score 7 points on 1 play or 7 plays, not for Kyle's offense, right? But for less experienced, I think, coaches, it can make the game feel differently. It can feel more like an avalanche than, like a lobster, and you put the lobster in the cold water, you slowly turn it up, they don't quite realize what's happening. Like, that's the kind of game the Niners like to play. 7 points is 7 points one way or the other. But I do think an inexperienced coach or an inexperienced quarterback can really get overwhelmed by a team that scores quickly.
Yeah, I agree.
Whereas Kyle, I know this: if the Eagles hit a big play like Shanahan, it doesn't 9 play drive or 1 big play. It doesn't change what Kyle's about to do.
For sure. I do think that 1 big play that place erupts.
Oh, it feels, everybody feels it. So like, does Brock
to me, it's less about Kyle. It's more about the team. Kyle's unfazed.
Well, here's the thing.
He's the least of my worries.
Yeah, I agree. That's the thing with the Eagles is I think Shanahan versus Sirianni is a massive advantage for the 49ers. Yep. But his coordinate, it doesn't really matter in this game because, Howie's given him the clock management sheet. His coordinators are both pretty good. I think Gannon's pretty good.
But they're running the game. Like, so Sirianni's mad or uptight or worried. Like, he's not doing anything.
I know. It's really bizarre. Because I think the coordinator matchup is Kyle, Gannon, D'Amico, Steichen, and, I don't know. It's crazy. It's weird. It's really weird. Because I think Shanahan is such an advantage over Sirianni. But Sirianni gave up play calling duties, so it doesn't matter.
Put it this way. Would the Eagles trade Kyle Shanahan for Nick Sirianni yesterday?
Honestly, and you and I talked about this on the last pod, would they trade Steichen for, if you told them, like, you got to lose one of them this offseason, either Steichen's going to go become a head coach somewhere or you got to get rid of Sirianni, what would they do? What would Howie Roseman, proactive, bold, what would he do?
Well, that's where the Rams game doesn't parallel because I'm just sorry I don't take their fans. Like, I don't view them as like a real fan base. But that feeling last year in Green Bay, which is, you'd put Green Bay as like a top 5 fan base in the world, any brand like that. You meet a Packer fan. I just played golf with one yesterday, 70-year-old guy. I mean, could just rattle off. It's not just about like knowing the history of the team. They know everything about the current team, about Packer fans are fucking so dialed and they're pissed off right now.
They buy ownership stakes even though they don't really get to do anything with them.
That loss last year made the whole organization question everything. It's a little different because you had this older quarterback who was going through some drama. You lose a game like this, and it's weird, right? Kyle going into this game is not just playing with house money in the sense of like Kyle Shanahan, you're better than Sirianni. You're not like a 7-point underdog. You're a 2-point underdog. And it's really just because they don't really know how, and your quarterback's a rookie. If Brock Purdy was 3 years in and just been a really good starter, this line honestly could be 1, right? I mean, it could be even lower. There's just some question marks with your quarterback. But I don't give the 49ers, and specifically Kyle, just some pass like, underdog, let it rip. Kind of like McCarthy coming in, didn't have that much to play for against the 49ers in the sense of no one thought he was going to win, besides like all the former Cowboy players on TV. Kyle, like there is some pressure.
They're kind of obligated to pick the Cowboys.
100%. I don't blame him. But like Kyle's coming in with this, like, you should probably win this game too, buddy. But the Eagles lose at home. That's going to be one where everyone looks around going, especially if it doesn't look pretty and something weird happens, where things get weird fast. And the Niners have proven they can force your hand of making it weird fast. And that's where I think you can go on the road with a bunch of war daddies. The Eagles have some too. Like, I mean, they have several guys that won a Super Bowl who are their most, Jason Kelsey's going to get his number retired. Fletcher Cox will get his number retired. Lane Johnson will get his number retired. I think Brandon Graham, who's the 4th of the bunch, but did have one of the most important plays in the Super Bowl where he hit Tom Brady and forced the fumble at the end, probably get his number retired too. So the 4 most famous guys that are old on this team.
Ndamukong Suh's won a championship. He'll get 25, 30 snaps.
You're right, but not like as a group. I'm talking like played together, but you're right. He's a championship level player or been on a champion. That it's just, I'm just fascinated by that because those guys will be ready and there's a lot of young guys, but they've added a lot. Like the 49ers really, beside McCaffrey, have kind of had the same crew, for now this run.
Yeah.
They added Ayuk in 20, but it's like, it's kind of been the same. And the other 2 most famous guys they add are just like a lot like A.J. Brown, just like plug and play, great player.
Yeah.
Trent Williams, just plug and play him. It's like, it is a baseball thing. Trent Williams could play for 32 teams. You wouldn't even notice him besides just stuffing the left side.
Well, he wouldn't play for the football team. He couldn't play for them.
Because he refused.
He played for them and no one ever talked about him. He hit his prime at 32 years old on the 49ers. What did
McCaffrey's the same thing. If McCaffrey's healthy, one of my great media misses as a player that I was like, I do not see it, could play for anybody if he's healthy.
Blind spot for white guys.
Yeah, I just thought he was Julian Edelman. which isn't the biggest, knock. I mean, Edelman's Super Bowl MVP.
I mean, not an elite athlete relative to like what McCaffrey is.
Feels like, Edelman, McCaffrey, similar speed by about McCaffrey's age now. 26. McCaffrey's not that super fast anymore. Explosive.
I thought it was his choppy steps. You told me small steps. Why doesn't he run away? I asked you today. You said small steps.
I think he's maybe scared that ham he's going to rip.
I think he's running as hard as he can. And then
I know. I'm just saying he's not as fast as he once was.
Yeah.
Again, he's still fast enough. And top end speed, back to my scouting days, least important thing a running back can have. It is the icing on the cake. The cake is already sweet. You do not need that. Think how many great running backs ran away from anyone. There's been like 2. Adrian
Peterson.
I would say
on this team, like if you break off, the Niners tend to break off like 30-yard runs from midfield. When you're not great in the red zone, you'd love to see a guy be able to make that run a touchdown. That's
why in 2021 Debo hit him.
When Debo hits him, it's big because it's like you're at the 42, he breaks it, touchdown. You're at the 29. You don't have to fuck around with being on the goal line, or the goal line actually is fine for the Niners. The 11-yard line is where things get really hairy for the Niners. I feel like you put the Niners on the goal line, touchdown. You put them on the 11, hell if I know.
Purdy might have to pull something.
You feel like the 11 is just like an awful place for the Niners offense historically?
I feel a little bit better with Brocktober.
Brock? Yeah. He becomes the 5th quarterback in his rookie season to start a conference championship game. The other 4 did not win. Sean King did not win. Joe Flacco, Ben Roethlisberger, and Mark Sanchez. So it's not enough to be a curse, but it's really, there's no pattern to those 4 guys, I'd say, other than they all had probably good defenses. But 2 of them went on to have.
I'd say great defenses. Tampa, probably the best defense in the league.
Steelers defense, Jerome Harrison.
Might even have been a little before. They were elite. Flacco's elite. Who was the other guy?
Sanchez. Did you say
elite? Yeah.
Good. 2 of those guys would go on to win championships. 2 of them would not.
And only one, you'd say, became a great player.
Yeah, Ben became great. Flacco had a hell of a career. Flacco being in the conference championship game as a rookie was indicative of what was about to come for him.
Yeah. Flacco's, doesn't it feel like he's got a couple more years left too? Does he have an 18-year career when it's all said and done? Because
when Robert Saleh told the media today we really want a veteran quarterback, wouldn't Flacco be like, well, what are you talking about, Robert? You got one.
I think they mean Rodgers.
Oh.
Listen, all 4 of those guys. Now, Ben became one of the great playmakers the NFL has ever seen. And when Flacco won the Super Bowl, he had one of the great playoff stretches in league history, a lot like some of Eli's runs in the playoffs. I heard Hasselbeck, not the Seattle one, but the shittier one, on with Russillo. And he was like, I called his game against Notre Dame years ago, a bowl game. And one thing you hear a lot now is Purdy is just like game managing, a lot like those players. Just historically, a young player on a really good team, just don't crash the car. And he's like, when I watch, I don't necessarily see that. Like, this guy's playmaking. I think what game management is what Jimmy Garoppolo was doing. And any 49er fan would tell you, this guy is dramatically better than Jimmy. So what Jimmy was doing actually fits like what Sanchez and Sean King and rookie Roethlisberger and rookie Flacco just kind of steer it. And most of the time, it's very hard to win that way. That's why they all lost in this game. Because ultimately, I'm going to need you to throw a couple touchdowns. And I will say this about Purdy. He does have the capability of doing that. Like, if you told me the 49ers had got here and it looked the same, obviously the games, they would not have scored the 30 points for like that 7-game stretch with Jimmy Garoppolo. But Jimmy Garoppolo starting this game, I would have little confidence they could win this game. I'm confident, and I think they're going to win because, I'm going to pick them. I guess I'm confident they have a chance to win because I think Purdy can make some plays in the passing game, which Jimmy couldn't.
Game management means you don't make plays off script. But here's the thing about game managers. They also, because they are not the most talented, they also miss, like, you don't hit 100% of your layups with game managers because game managers aren't, as it turns out, consistent enough to do that. Like,
Well,
you
not all
miss-
game managers are the same, right?
No, but I think the problem with game managers is not always that they're not elite talents and they don't make the extra plays. Is that by nature, by definition of being your game manager, you're limited, which means you will miss some layups. You will miss some open jumpers. You will. It's just that becomes the problem with a game manager, is that the coach can scheme stuff and the game manager won't hit them all because he's not good enough. That's why he's a game manager, right? But the way we use the definition really is game managers don't make plays outside of whatever it was called. That's with any consistency.
And I would say they don't have the capability for the most part of doing like explosive things.
Yeah, downfield throws, which Brock, again, that has the Niners have not become a quick strike offense with Brock Purdy.
But they have had quick strike plays that have been much more explosive, I feel, than Jimmy in terms of not a guy breaking a tackle, but like they had a play last game, like a quick pump fake, hit Kittle down the seam on the right side. Like they have more explosive plays in the pass game with Brock Purdy.
Let me ask you this. What do you think, if you had to pick one big difference between Purdy and Garoppolo, what is it?
I would say the ability to ad-lib with his feet to keep play alive that ends up leading to a throw.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's multiple right answers. My thought was going to be he doesn't, when he properly identifies the open guy, he hits him for the most part. Right. So like when Shanahan schemes open that slant, I don't know, Jimmy might just throw it too high. Where for the most part, Brock has just hit that. When Brock knows the throw, he hits the throw, I would say.
I feel like Jimmy's I feel Jimmy's not as accurate as Brock on a lot of the.
Yeah, that's a simpler way of saying it too, I think.
I think Brock, this version, the guy we've seen through 7 games, is just a better player. In a vacuum, in the context of the team, however you want to say it, is just a better player.
Like why? Like what is he better at?
Well, he's definitely more athletic.
Yep.
Which, no matter
what,
which is,
by the way, is why he's better than why right now you would take him. Like it's one of the things he does better than Mac Jones, right?
For sure. When you're more athletic, you can just keep a play alive. And like Jimmy just struggled with keeping a play alive. And when he somehow pulled it out of his ass, a lot of times it led to disaster. I would say so far with Brock, his throwaway, something Jimmy historically did not do. Like 3 career throwaways or whatever. He had 3 this year. It was a disaster. He would not throw the ball away. Brock throws the ball away, 1. And 2, when he does throw the ball down the field, he has hit a lot of big plays. Honestly, in the red zone, he's thrown touchdowns on broken plays. Some turned out to be dump off after he runs around for 5 seconds. Others hitting Kittle in the back. He has just hit a lot of ad-lib plays. Like one of the knocks on Cousins, another Shanahan guy, like cannot ad-lib. I think in theory he would love to be able. He physically is incapable because he can't keep plays alive with his feet. Dak can
Which
ad-lib.
is why I put Dak ahead of Kirk.
But you would watch Dak sometimes within the pocket makes poor mistakes.
Yeah, I know. God, what an awful ongoing debate that never dies. Cousins or Dak.
Because they both make a combined like $80 million.
And just don't win big games.
No. But if you are, and here's the thing, both of them kind of get screwed from the sense that they don't have good coaches. Well, maybe Kevin O'Connell turns out to be good. He fired Harbaugh's old guy, Ed Donatel, pretty quick. It's like, wait, this guy was good enough to be your defensive coordinator. A year in, you just realize he sucks. Anytime you're just constantly going through coaches.
Too.
Who?
Although I guess that guy, Mike McDaniel, but that guy had been in Miami.
I think it's a little different when I'm going to hire this guy than like, hey, this guy was good with Flores. You got to keep him. It's like, okay, I'll take the job.
Right.
That lost my train of thought on just the Purdy thing. Oh, back to those 2 quarterbacks. If you are going to pay a guy $35-40 million and he's never going to win you a second round playoff game, while that sucks, as long as you go to the playoffs every year, things could be a lot worse. And I think both of them benefit from, being in pretty stable organizations in terms of talent around them. And that is like Brock is never, it's impossible unless his arm comes in one off season with just like, did he add 5 miles an hour to his throwing? Is never going to be a top 5 quarterback. But as long as Kyle is around and the infrastructure is there with John and Adam and their ability to it was that way with Bill and Tom for all the random guys around them. This thing is more on Brock, can have success because of the guys around him. I would say
I say he maximizes the guys around him better.
Yeah.
Which is why
Kyle. But I just mean long term. Like he can just become a sustainable player because of the infrastructure he's going to have around him.
Yeah. And you would say like
Kyle's never paying him $40 million a year.
Well, but that's the way it works when you win a lot of games with a quarterback. You have to make a decision, like, because somebody else will.
And you keep drafting seventh round players. So.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing is at this point there are limitations to his game for sure, but I just trying to decide what Brock Purdy can't do. I would say so far he's done a lot of things that people would say he can't do. So you got to be open-minded to the possibility that he can. It turns out 5 years from now, he can do some things that we didn't know he could do.
Well, a lot of people tagged me in that. Did you see the Steve Smith rant? Steve Smith Sr. about Zach Wilson and,
I didn't think it was
Brock Purdy
Jr.
I think it was just there's just so many Steve Smiths. And it was basically like Brock Purdy in 7 games proved he could do so much more than Zach Wilson in 2 years. Steve Smith Sr., I think he might be an undrafted free agent, but he's, if anything, he's like a 6th or 7th round pick, but I'm pretty sure he's an undrafted free agent. That they have such a, those guys have animosity for high picks that can't play and then keep getting chances. All late round picks that become studs always like, and I get it. It pisses them off. And it's basic math. I mean, Brock Purdy, the reason everyone just naturally when you're the 7th round pick, but also the 49ers, they didn't invest anything in him. They literally gave him $77,000. Zach Wilson got a $26 million signing bonus.
Ward got more at Washington State.
Yeah, and Zach Wilson's $35 million guaranteed. So the reason the high picks get more chances is because they get more money invested. This is business 101.
3rd round for Steve Smith.
Okay, so he was higher than I thought. So his is just simply like he just hates scrubs. And I do too. You and I have worked around people that we thought got paid too much. We're like, what is going on here? And it's just a natural human reaction in any industry. But like the reason people like also Brock's pretty unprecedented. I mean, it's very, very unprecedented.
Wait, I'm sorry, I'm not following. What was Steve's rant? He was ranting. Which side of that was Steve Smith on? What was his?
Like Zach Wilson sucks. Brock Purdy's a stud. Why are we keep talking about how like questioning all these Brock Purdy things? If Brock Purdy was basically like if Brock Purdy was not even the 1st round pick, like a top 50 pick, everyone would be like, we knew it. This guy, but it's all the opposite. Like, are we sure? Is this really going to last? And he clearly hates Zach Wilson. Like everyone keeps making all these excuses and they keep trying. It's true. And the reason if Brock Purdy had been Trey Lance and he was doing this, everyone would be like, what this is this fucking Joe Montana?
100%.
But that's just the way it works.
But part of it is like we've been in the Trey Lance talking business for a while.
But he was literally the 3rd pick, right?
Yeah, I'm just but part of it is his skill set. His physical skills that we think he possesses, right? Even though I don't think he throws a great deep ball, but
or is that fast?
Every podcast becomes somehow about Trey Lance. We don't have to decide today if Brock Purdy is going to be good in 5 years, right? We look at the guys we talked about to start this part of the conversation. 4 rookies have done this. One of them turned out to be a Hall of Famer. Two of them turned out to be Super Bowl champs. 2 of the 4 came out to be Super Bowl champs. 2 of the other 4, we're not long-term. We're not franchise QBs. They were not franchise quarterbacks. But maybe, there are people who will tell you like, God, if Sanchez had just been in the right spot, he could have been. Sean King won 10 games the next year, but that was that. Things
all had great defenses on those teams.
All had great defenses. And I think your point earlier was Brock's numbers this year have been different than what those guys did offensively. But the bottom line is we don't know. We don't know what Brock Purdy will be 5 years from now. We just don't. And if he turns out to be great 5 years from now, we'll say we knew it from the start. And if he turns out not to be, people say, he only played 7 games. We just don't know.
But if he plays well in this game on the road in this environment and throws several touchdowns,
yeah.
1, it's never happened before in league history. And 2, it'll be something like you could be a really good player. right? Or a highly paid player. Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins. Let's just think of some of the guys in the NFC. If they, let's say the Lions had made the playoffs, Jared Goff, who started a bunch of big games and gone in and throw several touchdowns, his team won. That'd be like a historic victory for that guy, right? That would be something you could never, ever belittle. You would never be able to take that away from him. If he goes in now, if he has a Jimmy Garoppolo game, which is impossible, where you just only throw 8, like it's not possible in this game to only have eight passes. But if he has a game where he throws several touchdowns and plays well, potentially outplays Jalen, which, like you said, is possible given how Jalen has played against top defenses. Like, there's no more arguing this. 'Cause one, he's going to be their quarterback next year, so there's no arguing that. And two, it's like this guy's the games he played this year, he was awesome. Now, big picture, there's still a lot to be earned. How they keep this team together long term, we'll see. But like what we saw, he was fucking sweet. Better than Dak, better than Cousins. Like in his conference too. He does not have Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Herbert, Lamar. Hell, even Deshaun, who makes $230 million. Like, his conference is not the same. So he's seeing the best quarterback in his conference.
Yeah.
He saw arguably the second best in Dak, and he outplayed him.
I was thinking about this today.
The conference has shitty quarterbacks, guy. That's one thing that has going for him. Marino, Elway, and Montana aren't in his division.
Well, if he forget about
Stafford could come back, but Stafford had 50 fucking interceptions this year.
Yeah, I mean, and has been hurt a lot. Really,
he's going to retire.
Really, 5 years from now doesn't matter, right? To your point, if the Niners win on Sunday, I was thinking about this today. Like, could you overstate how crazy it is that Brock Purdy quarterbacks the 49ers to a Super Bowl appearance? Every day is filled with people making incredible statements about how this is the greatest thing since X. We do it. I do it. You do it. Sometimes, but Brock Purdy being the last pick of the draft, leading a team to a Super, or quarterbacking a team to a Super Bowl, I don't think you can overstate how insane it is. Like, to use the old cliche, if you made a movie with that plot, it would feel not believable. Sports gives us stuff like that all the time. But even in sports that gives us stuff like that all the time, right? This would be on and up. This would be one of the wildest sports stories that we've witnessed. It already kind of is, but
one major difference to those 4 quarterbacks that we listed, the rookie quarterbacks that started. Obviously, Mark Sanchez was the 5th pick in the draft. Joe Flacco was the 18th pick in the draft. Roethlisberger was the 11th pick in the draft. I had to Google Sean King because I was like, maybe he was a little later.
Tulane?
He was later. Tulane was still the 50th pick in the draft.
Wow.
So the latest pick of that 4 was Sean King at 50, and the other 3 were all top 18, 11, and 5. So Purdy has nothing in common. Like, if you're a second-round pick, it's not that crazy if you end up playing a lot as a rookie. It's insane to play as a rookie as a 7th-round pick on a really good team, and then on top of doing this. So he, besides just being a rookie, has nothing in common with all these guys that were good prospects, right? The 3 of them were viewed as like big-time prospects, first-rounders. You draft a guy in the first round of quarterback, he's your starting quarterback. That's what this guy's story is. Just
part of it. Like, Sanchez is not huge. The other 3 guys are big guys, physically tall, large.
Sean King's not tall.
He's not tall. He's just big.
He's put on a lot of weight for his career. But he was 220 coming out. He was big in even coming out of college.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, what I've seen,
how tall is
Bills? 6 feet even.
Oh, okay.
I'd say he's about 6 feet 3 Bills. Feels like when I've seen videos of him talking. Am I thinking about the right Sean King? Pretty big now.
Yeah, I think so. I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
He's gone on every local radio station this week, but in America.
Purdy truly is. Like, if Purdy had been their 2nd-round pick, then he'd just fit in this mold. Like, I don't put him in this mold. He was drafted hundreds of picks later than these guys.
So again, answer my question. Like, how do you even if he goes to the Super Bowl this year, How do you even put that in the context of the craziest things we've seen in sports? It's very hard to put it.
It's right up there.
Yeah, it's up there. And sports has had, there's a million crazy things that have happened.
Well, what makes Brady truly unique, right, is the 6th round pick. If Tom Brady had Wally pipped,
if Brady had been a number 1 pick, it's still, I mean, to
it
win.
still is he became the greatest player. Like Michael Jordan was the 3rd overall pick. But Tom Brady being a 6th round pick and ultimately taking out a guy who was, I think, the highest paid guy in the league at the time, or one of them in Drew Bledsoe. Yeah. Like the way his story started,
right?
People by about 2007 on, no, you're not even talking about that anymore. But like those first couple series, like how are they doing this with this 6th round pick? That's the crazy part. And this is back to Steve Smith. Steve, where you are drafted, fair or not, is the way it's just that determines the rollout of your career. Like that is your entrance into the league. At rookie minicamp, first thing you go is like, where's a 1st rounder? You don't go, where's that sweet undrafted free agent? I mean, some of the nerds do. I don't. I go, where's the 1st rounder?
That's the irony with Shanahan is he gives his undrafted quarterback as much a look as he gives his 1st round quarterback, but most coaches don't.
Yeah. It took a level of luck to come. Right.
Yeah,
because for a large part of the Purdy story is when Jimmy wasn't a known option, even though they were clearly thinking and talking to him, but they didn't know if they were going to be able to keep him. Purdy was in a backup quarterback battle, where if Jimmy had just been on the team to start training camp, however him and Trey were going to figure each other out, I think battling for 3rd, you're not quite on the same wavelength with the coach/OC as he was given. I think he got an opportunity to kind of assert himself in front of the head man who calls the plays because Jimmy Garoppolo was just working on the side, and he was actually got to battle for the 2nd job.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if we're here if he's battling for the 3rd job.
But there are a lot of teams where the 7th round pick gets to battle for the backup job.
Usually not good ones.
But I'm just like, I think more often than not, your backup quarterback.
True. Yeah, I agree.
So much better than your 7th. Yeah, it's just Jimmy Garoppolo, usually that level of player is not your backup quarterback.
True. It's Chad Henne.
Yeah. Who I don't know if they would let anybody beat him out, but
you know the Bengals backup quarterback is? Because I was thinking, like, I know all the backup quarterbacks.
John Kitna.
You'll never get it.
Really? Is it like it was like the guy that played it was like one of the Packers 3rd stringer last year? That guy?
I mean, it's you've heard the name, but it's just not gonna. It's not gonna pop like a Flacco or Chase Daniel or something.
Is it like a Cooper Rush type?
Yeah, I would say it's in that vein. Yeah.
Is it the guy that played for the Packers?
No, he's been on the Bengals now for a couple years.
College?
Arkansas. I'm pretty sure he was a transfer.
Yeah, who?
Brandon Allen.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like I've seen him in the Bengals uniform.
Would have played a little the year, he tore his ACL.
Somebody said mallet.
I guess he wasn't a transfer. Was Arkansas the whole time.
Tyler Bray.
The SEC got a lot cooler the last post. He left at 15. It feels like they've had a more national run the last 6-7 years than that first half of the season.
Yeah. Leach helped.
Yeah.
Lane.
It'd be hard to be a starting quarterback for several years in the SEC the last 5 years and not like, whoa, yeah, I remember him.
For a run, they had it was just like Big Ten quarterbacks.
Same thing, exactly.
Like Wisconsin's had, outside of Russ, it feels like the same guy. When you see a Wisconsin guy and they're like, oh yeah, Mertz, man, he's a hot prospect. You're like, no way. This guy's been here 7 years. Like, no, he's young. Why does every Wisconsin, Iowa quarterback feel old?
Mertz, Hurts, Schmertz, it's just a rotation of the same look.
It's a bunch of Graham Mertz looking guys.
I'm telling you, he was a 5-star from New Jersey, had a connection with Paul's cousin. Like, yeah, let me know. The sweet guy's going to be playing at Ohio State.
It immediately stops looking like a 5-star.
Ohio State's going to have a guy that throws 50 touchdowns. Harbaugh will have some overachiever. The rest of you guys all got the same quarterback.
It feels like Harbaugh gets underachievers.
I don't know what Harbaugh's doing, but
John, our leading story last pod, Update: Charles Omenihu. Kyle Shanahan answered the questions Wednesday. Going to play. He said legal system, legal process, whatever. We feel confident that when that plays itself out, he didn't say it. He didn't say exactly this, but he basically said, like, we feel confident that once the legal process plays itself out, it won't look crazy that he played in this game. That's kind of what it felt like he was saying. Like,
is that when he was like, we spent the last 48 hours kind of
digging into it? Yep. Not me, but other people whose job it is to do that stuff. And he's going to play as long as he's healthy. And we're going to let the legal part of it play out, but we feel good about it. And then and then at the end he threw in like, but we're not cutting him right now. He kind of just threw that in. Like, we said we're not kicking him off the team.
Yeah. Sounded like a college coach when he said that.
He did. Yeah. So, which I do think in a game where the quarterback can make you work for it, as many bodies as possible is important. So
he's also injured. He's got an oblique injury.
Yeah. Only played what did we say? 15 snaps last game.
Yeah. And he was limited in practice, I think, yesterday. We had talked. My stance was just, it's pretty risky just because you could never know. But then I think by the end of the conversation, we just said, be prepared. Like, their job is 100% to win, and Kyle's job is to win, not teach life lessons. Because no one would have got credit if he just said, yeah, it's not worth the risk. We like him, we believe him, but we have a zero tolerance policy. Every zero tolerance policy turns into like, well, is it week 2 or is it the NFC Championship game? And I got no issue. Like,
how good is the player?
Starter, pass rusher.
Oh, okay. Well, let me think about zero tolerance.
Yeah, if he was like the 7th DB who rotates in on covering kicks, it'd be an easy one. But yeah, this guy's 6'5", 280, and been a really good player for him since trading. It's been an underrated acquisition by the 49ers for a 6th-round pick. I mean, this guy's played a shitload, and yeah, like, they're just not in teaching life lessons. Could you do this in college?
Could you do it in college? What do you mean? Like, could you
if this same situation happened in college, it'd be harder, right?
I think you play the guy. I think it's very dependent on, like, I don't think Kyle has any interest in teaching life lessons one way or the other. I do think there's a world where the situation they would have evaluated the situation and said, it's not good. We think in the future, once the legal process plays itself out, it will look bad that we played him and we're not going to play him. Like, I do think there's a world where they look into it and go, no, this is worse, and he's not going to play. I do think they kind of went into it with that. Like, oh, I don't know. I didn't talk. Just listening to Kyle, 2 answers. I think there is a scenario where what they would have viewed it as, we can't play him, and they dived into it and they determined that in 3 months or whenever the thing's done, people won't look back and go, I can't believe you played him in that game.
Yeah, that's
what he's saying. Like, we think it'll be okay.
I agree with you.
No, I know you do. I'm just saying, like, I do think there's a world where it's bad enough that they don't play him. That I don't think they were just playing him no matter what the circumstances.
And when my life lessons thing is, when I go back to college, like, the guy went to jail on Monday.
Yeah.
I've been in the back of a police car one time, but it wasn't my fault. And I didn't have cuffs on me. It was, criminal I was in the car with. This is when I was like 13, long story. And family friend that turned out to be just actually now a lifetime criminal. But again, long story. It got dropped off this day for whatever reason. I swear to God, my parents had 17 friends over, all in the front yard as the car was dropping me off.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, just never been arrested. I'm pretty sure you've never been arrested. A lot of people listening, I bet a large percentage of them have never been arrested. The guy got arrested and went to jail. So when I go to the college, the life lessons thing, like, you go to jail, I'm sorry, there's just not much room of a game that later that week. To me, it's a pretty easy thing. Conference championship, legal process. It's kind of a go-to football thing. Are they doing the same if this is week 3? I don't know. I just think when I heard Kyle talk, I believe you, or I believe him that, like you just alluded to, they feel that nothing's going to happen. Easy to justify. Also, he's a free agent, probably won't be on the team next year. It's all about now. And ultimately, does anyone really care? Again, he didn't, the accusation's not he slugged her in the face. Like, if that was the accusation, he went to jail and he claims he was innocent, is that a bigger risk than a shove to the ground?
Yeah, I think it's totally dependent on what they believe. And like you said the other day, like, guy can lie to you. You can be lied to. I think it's about what they believe will happen once it plays itself out. And I think they believe that nothing's going to happen or close to nothing's going to happen beyond what has already happened.
Yeah. This is the NFL. And their job is to win. And this guy helps them win. I'm not against, like, my point is, like, I'm unfazed by any of it. Like, if they wanted to cut him, cool. Like, I'm not taking some stance that, like, I'm not watching, but no one is.
Lucky's not the word, but I'm not saying that it's easy for them, but I think it sometimes these situations are more complicated, and it feels like this one was pretty straightforward for them. On the easier end of the spectrum from whatever they determined, wherever they talked about.
Yeah. It's just never ideal to have.
It's really bad, and he gets, like, something happens to him legally later, we'd be like, holy shit, like, the Niners just didn't care at all, right? But
yeah.
But I don't think that's what happened here. I don't think we know that they don't care based on him playing in this game.
Yeah, I mean, they're all married with daughter. I mean, of course they care. I just think, and I think a lot of people.
I guess what I'm saying ultimately, just to repeat myself, is I do think there's a world where they would have not played him. That's what I'm saying. Do you think that or no?
I think it would have to be pretty bad.
Yeah.
I think anything on the fence where it's just, I think most coaches would have operated like that. And back to what I said, like, it doesn't feel like that many players in the NFL got arrested. Like, getting arrested is kind of a big deal. Again, never been arrested. Never been arrested. Most people watching this, never been arrested.
Most people in the NFL, never arrested.
Most people in society, never been arrested.
Yeah.
Shoplifters, California, never get arrested. Like, some people just avoid the police.
Looters. Not looters. Squatters was the word I was looking for.
So damn squatters.
John, check this out. The betting public so far in this in the lead up this week to this game. 69% of the bets are on the Eagles. I shouldn't say betting public. It can be sharps, which are just public. Everyone's, but
they're humans. They put on their pants the same way we do, guys.
Betting civilians. 69% of the bets on the Eagles. 92% of the money is on the Eagles this week. So the Eagles by the line are the favorite. 92% of the money on the Eagles that's a big percentage of the money. That's huge.
Yeah, I mean, I got a little $100 bet right now on Max Homa, who's in the mix to win at Torrey Pines. If he were to win, he's 21 at a couple grand. I might just roll it over and put it on the Niners money line. I guess it's pretty good odds for a team that easily could win the game. Like, I just think the Niners, I think, are pretty good value.
Plus 125 money line.
Getting points on the road against a team that.
You're saying you would take a money line or you would take them plus 2.5?
I would take a money line.
Yeah.
I would take a money line.
Over under 46.5.
I'd probably take the over, but my gambling history over unders. I mean, shit, whatever you do, it always the opposite. Because there's no worse feeling. It's such a roller coaster ride. Like, when no one scores in the first quarter, you're like, I'm done. And then all of a sudden 3 touchdowns, you're like, I'm alive. And then goes the fourth quarter and you're 1 point short. And they, instead of kicking the field goal, they throw a Hail Mary and you're like, what are we doing? It's just over unders in theory should be fun, but they're just tend not to be. I feel the point spread is just the safest way to always go. My point is, if you're going to take the Niners plus 2.5, you might as well just take them to win the game, right? This is not like a 5-point line. This is
and also, if you're going to take them plus 2.5, like, I don't know. I mean, there's definitely a world where that is the difference between winning and losing, but to me, it's not quite the same fun.
You see any scenario where the Niners win this game by like double digits?
I think it's the least likely of the 4 scenarios. Niners win close, Niners lose close, Eagles win by 2 touchdowns, Niners win by 2 touchdowns. I think Niners win by 2 touchdowns is the least likely. Even though they blow teams out with some regularity.
With Purdy.
I think that's the least likely scenario. But I don't know. Brock Purdy being here is an unlikely scenario. So who the hell knows?
What if Kyle's up late, they blow it and lose again? and this is the third time. Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Coordinator where
Hey.
he gets treated like the head coach, and then it happens again. Rams, they were leading in the second half. Kowalski just catch the ball.
Got to catch it. Super Bowl. Got to catch it. Or got to PBU it. Cowboys. Didn't run out of bounds, Niners. Yeah. Yeah, man. This game is just so good. I wish this game could be I wish this Niners-Eagles could be like best of 7.
I agree.
Because it just feels so good.
Like, would anyone complain if the NFL just threw out a release? We're moving back to the Super Bowl because we're going to go best of 3 for both these two games.
The Bengals like, this is bullshit. You're giving Mahomes time to rest.
Yeah, that's exactly what that's like.
And the league would be like, Bengals, sorry, what? Don't care. No, nobody would complain.
It is. Now, it doesn't feel like it, but home field is pretty big, you know. And to me, it's not as big for the Niners being at home. It's just that the having to go on the road. Like I don't view Levi's as some big home field advantage.
Oh, you're saying just going to place X, not necessarily that it's Philadelphia.
Depending on who you're playing. And I think there are a couple places that are just very, very difficult. Obviously, Green Bay, which that thing was a knockdown drag out last year. I would put this near the top of all the NFC teams, right?
Did the Giants have like some shit happen to their team hotel last week? Did they like lose? Like, no, I feel like I saw some tweet. Something happened and somebody
no
was
water.
Like,
was it no water?
Yeah, like this is why you don't stay in Philly, you idiots. Am I imagining that? Like,
would you just stay in Jersey and then bus over?
I don't know. Like, is there any way to keep it? Is there any way to keep it? There's really no way to keep it under the radar where you're staying, right?
Well, I mean, there's coming with such a big, it would get out.
Well, and there's just local. There's the people who work at the hotel are fans of the other team.
Yes,
I saw somebody posted today not internal email, but like they had jury duty, and in the email they got for the rule for like, you know, here's, don't forget, show up at 8, show up at this building. It said, feel free to wear your Eagles gear at jury duty.
I actually got one of those where I kind of went through. I pushed it on a yellow light, and I got sent one of those screenshots of just me driving.
Of yourself, yeah.
And then I was like, God, do I have to pay this? Like, it was a separate company, so it wasn't like Phoenix PD or whatever. They outsource it. And then I got, like 2 weeks later, a letter that was saying, we screwed up, you're good. I was like, what? I definitely pushed it, and I remember the light going. I was like,
so I wonder what happened.
I don't know. Some clerical error.
Did you enter the light? Did you enter the intersection on yellow?
I've been known to do that.
Which is legal.
No, I was in the wrong. However, I entered.
I got you.
I was late.
Yeah.
I do that too much. That's I mean, potentially, I'm not, no pun intended, fatal flaw of, I'm working on that.
Full speed mistakes.
That's not one you just seen too many car chases where the car's beeline. You don't even need a car chase, right? The guy's just timing the light, right?
Yeah, and it's like, well, that's the scary one, is when you're coming up to the light and you're like, oh, this is about to turn green. I don't have to brake at all.
100%.
Or if someone runs it the other way, and really, where most times you can afford to be 45 seconds or 2 minutes later wherever you're going.
Exactly.
CVS,
just a podcast,
gym, whatever. Yeah, exactly.
That's
the beauty of this job, is when people are like, why aren't you guys on time for the stream? It's like, sorry, man, we're just podcasters. Like, we're not. I don't have the launch codes. I'm just doing a podcast.
You can find those in a garage near you with about 7 different politicians.
Yeah. Or Warriors front office execs. Podcasters, that is.
Another story about Bob leaving last night I saw. It feels like Bob Myers might be on his last hurrah here with the Warriors.
Feels like he's on the way, yeah.
Had my brother ask his brother-in-law who lives his neighbor.
Oh, okay. I know somebody whose daughter used to babysit. I'll put out some feelers.
When I was home for Christmas, my brother's like, they threw a big party. I'm pretty sure Bob Myers was there. That's always, whenever something happens, like, you think Bob was there?
And then you just start telling the story, like, oh, yeah, Bob was over there the other day. No idea if Bob was there or not.
Yeah, Bob's never been to the home in 3 years.
It's actually kind of estranged from the family. Yeah, so the Giants lost, the hotel lost water at the Giants hotel.
Yeah.
There's no way that's accidental. There's no way.
No,
The evidence is in.
Yeah, I wouldn't stay there.
Connor says Trey Lance is praying the Niners lose this game probably. You know, I was thinking about that today. Like, because I heard Tim Ryan say that Trey Lance is like a big part of the game, like helping Brock during the game, just like backup quarterback. That's what quarterbacks do, right? The backup quarterback, although where's Jimmy? But the backup quarterback does that stuff. Trey is always right next to Kyle. Like if Trey Lance is watching tape and Trey Lance is in the meetings and Trey Lance is helping Brock, well, then if the Niners win a Super Bowl, Trey Lance can say, like, I helped win that ring. Like, I earned this ring. I contributed to this team. So I get it. Like, you know, it's you want your job and all that in the future, whatever. But I don't know if you told me like Trey's all in on trying to win a championship and he's not thinking about, oh, if we win, then that makes it harder for me to take the job from Brock next year. If the Niners lose on Sunday, it's harder for him taking Brock's job. Like he's got to go take it. It's not his job anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. If you're a good teammate, winning a championship's fun. Like going to the Super Bowl is a cool experience. If you told me Trey is like really wants to win, that wouldn't surprise me.
It is, when you say being a good team, it is unique with the quarterback position.
It is. Yeah.
But when there's only one, I think it's lineman, receiver, someone else going off, whatever. I do think I'm not saying he's actively rooting against or for, because it doesn't matter. Like, you ain't the starter anymore, no matter what happens.
But you don't think you would value a Super Bowl ring you won if you felt like you helped contribute to it, even if you weren't playing?
For sure. I mean, you would rather win the Super Bowl. Yeah. I don't think he's actively rooting for. But I've known enough humans, and I have some weird thoughts cross my mind. Like,
very human.
He would not be abnormal if deep down inside, when he threw a pick six to lose the game, that he's not like, oh, that might slow everything down a little bit.
JT says Greenlaw's the X factor on the QB spy. I hope he contains him like he did with Russ in the past. Yeah, Fred. I mean, Fred last time they played, Jalen had a really nice open field tackle on him coming up to make a play. So
I would say a point of emphasis this week from Kyle is going to be they've had a 15-yard penalty in back-to-back games. Like it's one thing to get a holding penalty or a PI. Like I would say the free 15 yards on a late hit or shove out of bounds, like that's a no-go. Which in this game, and if tensions are high, and Greenlaw is a fucking
Jimmy Ward got one on Jalen Hurts the last time they played. Not because he was trying to, just because guy going out of bounds, and he just hit him late because it's, the quarterback's a threat.
Well, that's what happened to Geno, right? Slid. He's just a running quarterback.
Yeah, that one was even bullshit, but you're just going to get the benefit of the doubt. Like, do you think if you're Hurts, you saw Eric Armstead clearly in his head, kind of afraid of a penalty, understandably so, on the Dak play in the end zone, and you think like, I can get these guys to I think if you're just a quarterback in general, you think defensive players are kind of in a weird headspace, afraid to hit you. But
I think that was a unique spot late in the game, up 6 points or 7 points. I think he was very cocky. I would say the majority of the game, he's probably more aggressive in that spot. I think he's really in his own dome. I can't. They have no life.
What do you mean no life?
Well, like he's in the end zone. I can't get like a slamming him into the ground penalty. Like I think he just tackles him normally.
You thought it was more situational.
85% of the game. I think that's a weird spot to be in. Whereas like we've won the game, we just can't fuck it up. So what are you saying in the huddle? Like no dumb plays, guys. Play within yourself. Keep them in front of you.
No penalties.
And D linemen are already kind of wired now to be careful.
The one thing this is where you say for D'Amico is like, he clearly has not tried to coach that out of his guys, right? And that was a Robert Saleh thing too, right? Like full speed mistakes, all gas, no brakes. And the Niners don't, they just accept, this is part of playing football. We are going to hit guys as hard as we can, as much as we can, and sometimes we might get a 15-yard penalty. That seems to be their philosophy, which probably, they'd say, yeah, this is football. You got to play that way.
which is true. I agree.
Which is how it seems like most guys play, which is where these penalties come in.
Which is how good I'd say good defenses play.
Yeah. Yeah. In the end, we'll make more plays than we won't because we played that way. And I think it's true. All right, I'm going to rattle you through some quick ones before we get out of here. Mike Kliss says D'Amico's the top Broncos candidate. Denver reporter. That's what he said.
Don't take it.
Don't take it. Let's see. Panthers hire Frank Reich. Mentioned that earlier. But I don't know. Frank, obviously, I think the shine has come off Frank a little bit. The Colts thing was pretty weird. Now, the Colts are a weird franchise. But interesting hire. I don't know if that's going to work.
I think they were desperate to get a guy with experience who's had some success.
Jets hired Nathaniel Hackett. Don't let
Davis.
the narrative. What did Robert said something like? Don't let people believe that he didn't. Bad situation last year. Also said they're committed. The Jets are committed to finding a vet.
Aaron Rodgers will be the New York Jets quarterback. Book that one. I think that's a lock.
Following in Brett's footsteps.
I think it's a lock.
I think that's which is great.
Well, I mean, I think it makes the Packers kind of irrelevant.
I don't know. Jordan Love, man. Remember, he had like 3 throws that I thought were very promising this year.
Out of nowhere in a 20-point, loss.
Pat's hire Bill O'Brien. Did you read the Belichick story today? The big Belichick story? There was some anonymous quote I saw in it that was like, Bill really kind of screwed us this year. Like Bill got in the way. Belichick.
By a player or coach?
I didn't, just the quote of the story. One of the quotes was like, Bill really kind of fucked us this year.
With Patricia?
Just with the whole, yeah. The assumption was with Patricia. I haven't read the article yet.
Doesn't it feel there's a 50-50 chance that Bill O'Brien is the next head coach of the New England Patriots? I'm not saying like next year. I'm just saying like that's. I would guess that's coming down the pipe.
Next coach of the Dallas Cowboys, I'm going with Dan Quinn, who announced he is staying in Dallas. Repeatedly asked on Thursday by reporters if the offensive coordinator would be back. All Mike McCarthy said was, everyone's getting evaluated, but he refused to say yes. Kellen Moore's coming back.
Is there a chance that Dan Quinn today makes more money than Mike McCarthy?
You mean because he just got they paid him to stay?
I guess maybe he didn't have was he going to get a job offer? Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. If Mike makes 7, he makes 8.
Dan Quinn, you think they paid Dan Quinn 8? You're saying?
Well, I mean, D'Amico makes 3.
I think it'd be pretty crazy to pay your defensive coordinator more than your head coach. But did they do that once before? Actually,
yeah, they did.
Wait, what was that situation?
Well, because it was Wade Phillips, Jason Garrett. Miami offered Jason Garrett the job, and Jerry just paid him the same contract, and that contract turned out to be more than Wade Phillips was making.
Right. So yeah, I guess there is the chance.
Now, you're right. It doesn't feel like if Denver had offered him the job and he had chose to stay, that would be a bigger story. We don't know. He might know I'm not going to get a head job. They did change a bunch of coaches. I feel like I root for ball guys naturally. I think Dan's all-time career just renaissance. I think most people thought this guy's overrated. He goes to Dallas and shit. He's been awesome. He's become, I don't know, one of the best coordinators in the league.
Yeah, I mean, back-to-back top 5 defenses.
Saw Fangio's interviewing with Mike down there in
How about
South
the
Beach.
nugget you gave me the other day that Fangio's on the Eagles payroll? I thought he was going to Niners practices.
He's out and about. You gotta get money where you can.
Hey, Vic, we can't give you a sideline pass to this practice. You're taking a paycheck from the Eagles.
I wonder if he's waiting because if D'Amico leaves, come home, buddy.
Come back to the Niners. Yeah, I'm just saying, but how could the Niners let him into practices if he's on the Eagles payroll?
He ain't coming to practice this week.
Trust nobody. Jeez.
Howie's always got random dudes on the payroll, man.
That's smart.
Yeah, when what's his name was fired by the Browns, the GM, Dorsey, he loves getting just guys on the payroll.
Yeah. Interesting.
A lot of people taking money from Lurie.
All right. We'll be honest. We'll be transparent. We have not decided what our situation is Sunday in terms of what time we're going to come on our stream. We've debated, do you come on right after Niners-Eagles or do you wait until after Bengals-Chiefs? And we've not figured that out yet. So, but we'll be on Sunday. That much is we can promise. And if you got a take on that, some feedback. But I mean, selfishly, like we'd love to just watch both games and then go on after the second game. But it's hard sometimes. Something happens in the Niner-Eagle game. It's hard after an NFC Championship game to just sit on your hands for 3 hours. So I don't know. Anything you want to add there?
Yeah, he's just going to be one of those you'll feel in your gut when it happens. We'll know. I think it's hard because if they do win, who are you playing?
Right. But who you're playing is not the biggest story that day.
No,
right?
no, that's true.
You got 2 weeks for who you're playing.
Just as a consumer, we only get to watch so many more games live.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Fans first, guy. We did this because we've been watching games for a long time. Now, what would piss you off is like if that game's a blowout, you're like, oh, this is stupid.
Niners-Eagles?
No, the second game.
Oh, then you just fire it up right away, right? You're like audible. No one would complain about that.
So if we do wait, we'll do a long one.
24-hour stream after both games end. You just keep the cameras going while we go to bed?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
All right. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody. Send us pictures of you enjoying your Titos this weekend. I got another picture from the guy who sends us naked photos of himself watching the stream on Sunday night, by the way.
You gotta be careful.
Rear only, thankfully.
Yeah. Well, ass never hurt anybody. Looks like he shaved it.
Never hurt anybody. I mean, very hairless, whole body hairless.
Yeah.
I
always do. I got 2 razors in the
tramp stamp.
I got 2 razors in the shower. One's for just all my crevices, and one's just for my face and head. You got to separate it.
Yeah.
It's butt, back. You do some crazy reaches in the back. Sometimes out of the shower, you just see like I got a bunch of just random hairs. Those don't cut as well though when they get too long. Hard to swipe.
They're usually wispy.
Yeah, harder to cut.
So, all right. On that note,
speaking of Manscaped, they're supposed to send us a check. I gotta go check the mail. It's been a little while.
Oh, I read the other day Josh Allen heavily invested in Manscaped.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say that I read they went out of business. I'm like, oh shit, we're never getting our money.
Yeah. Checks in the mail.
Yeah. Biggest line in America.
The podcast advertising, they like to pay 6 months after the fact.
It's a grind.
Luckily we've been rolling this thing, so it's the thing we're doing now in 6 months, and last 6 months ago got paid, so steady stream. All right, thanks to all of you, by the way. All right, thanks everybody. Thanks for hanging. Talk soon. Adios, pelota.